Everybody has their book bag?
Nikita Price earns a living like so many of us.
All right.
Toiling long hours at the office. In this case, the East Harlem headquarters of the nonprofit organization Picture the Homeless. When the day ends,
Okay, girls, pay attention. Come on.
it's then time for Nikita to be a father to his 2 daughters. On many a night,
What's up, family? How you be, man?
his personal and professional lives intersect on the walk to the train. It's during these moments Nikita reflects on just how easy it is to go from offering help to needing it.
So you went from okay to homeless in how long?
The fire happened about 9:15 in the morning, and we were homeless in an hour.
That was last winter. Nikita suddenly found himself from enjoying the warm, safe confines of his own home to huddling and scrambling with his 2 young daughters in a homeless shelter.
I know that it could happen. I tell people that all the time. That, you never know. Don't blink. It could happen to anyone.
Nikita eventually got back on his feet. He had a support system, but it wasn't easy. For tens of thousands of seemingly safe, comfortable working people and families in our area, a fast-moving fire isn't the only kind of setback that could leave you in dire straits. Hearing about someone who is just 1 paycheck away from a life on the streets becomes less abstract when you consider something as routine as the cost of a medical emergency. According to Federal Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which tracks healthcare costs, in 2013, the average total hospital inpatient payment in New York hospitals for a seizure was more than $15,000. In New Jersey, it was also more than $15,000 for a respiratory infection. And in both states, simple pneumonia triggered an average total hospital inpatient payment of more than $11,000. Throw in annual deductibles, coverage limits, rising residential rents, and record high tolls and mass transit fares, and we are left with a working class at risk of losing it all.
I think the real stories that you're bringing out are going to make a difference.
Assemblyman Joe Lenthal has represented his Brooklyn district for more than 4 decades. In other words, he's seen it all, and then some.
My district has changed tremendously. I'm talking about Williamsburg and Greenpoint, which may be the most gentrified neighborhoods in New York City right now. As a result of gentrification, I can't even count the number of people who have lost their apartments and may be homeless and living in their cars, the ones that you're doing your story on.
On the average, taxpayers will spend tens of thousands of dollars this year alone to provide psychiatric and other medical care for a single homeless person. Dr. Alan Felix, medical director at the Riverdale Mental Health Association in the Bronx, says the problem gets worse the longer a person lives on the streets.
Being stressed, living in street situations can definitely bring out a mental illness.
In fact, Mayor Bill de Blasio's administration has committed more than $345 million to combat mental illness. This includes the recent launch of New York City Safe, a $22 million annual initiative on homelessness and mental illness. But what happens when a person of sound mind and body is eager to improve their situation? In other words, when someone does not fit the stereotypical lazy, complacent, homeless person recently described by Police Commissioner Bill Bratton.
One of the quickest ways to get rid of them is not to give to them.
For Sean Lance in Harlem, the solution comes in the form of employment, getting a job.
It's a solution to every problem. Can you see yours? One day, hopefully, yeah.
But the 26-year-old feels this can only happen if the public changes its perspective and recognizes when someone really wants to get ahead.
They automatically look at us as bums. And they automatically, some of them assume, okay, if you're homeless, how are you gonna wash? How are you gonna dress?
You grew up on these streets?
More or less, yeah.
In Washington Heights, Anastasio echoes those sentiments. He does not consider himself a member of Bratton's Homeless and says he genuinely wants to cross the bridge to the next chapter of his life instead of sleeping under one.
We don't deal drugs, we don't rob anybody, but We try and do whatever we possibly can.
And you try to hustle on the streets so you don't find yourself sleeping
Absolutely.
underneath the George Washington Bridge.
Absolutely. Not a place we want to be.
Jay Acevedo, a 21-year-old homeless mother out of the Bronx, sums up what we heard over and over during our reporting.
I'm an individual. I bleed like you bleed. I'm here.
You're not a stat.
Exactly.
On a recent afternoon, in an auditorium on the Upper West Side, nonprofit agency executives and elected officials joined a crowd filled with homeless men and women to focus on real solutions. Pix 11 News was the only broadcast media outlet who covered the Campaign for New York Housing Forum, organized to push for more supportive housing. Supportive housing goes beyond ordinary affordable housing, offering specialized services to address the myriad of issues that often plague our region's homeless population. So why haven't you heard more about supportive housing?
Because it's expensive. But putting people in shelters is even more expensive cumulatively. If you invest now in the permanent solution, you won't have to worry down the road that we've got, oh my God, we've got 1 million more homeless.
In other words, mishandling efforts to address homelessness is equivalent to marching your tax dollars into societal quicksand. Jennifer Erb Downward of the Institute for Children, Poverty, and Homelessness spends countless hours scrutinizing homeless-related data. She sees a potential exit strategy, but it begins with a simple but challenging step.
You look at the numbers, you understand them. If you were able to write a policy for Albany or for the city of New York tomorrow, what would be the first thing you would do?
I think the first thing that I would do would be to have a way to identify institutions and communities that could be built up, where resources could be really implemented in those local settings. I think that would be the first starting step.